Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Lindsey Report. And now, Hal Lindsey.
Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Hal Lindsey Report. I believe one of the most telling signs of the approaching end of this age is the speed with which events and conditions are falling into place. When I began to study Bible prophecy in earnest in the mid-50s, we got excited when we saw identifiable prophetic movements every decade or so. And we were right to do so because before the mid part of the 20th century, discernible developments in prophecy occurred over the course of centuries. Today, those developments are occurring every few months, even weeks. At the beginning of each Hal Lindsey report, our announcer says, "Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines." This week's headlines perfectly illustrate the truth of that statement. From Washington and Rome, two stories capture the essence of how prophecy is developing before our eyes. Here in America, we're once again engaged in a renewed national discussion about a universal tracking and regulatory identification system. The current form of that tracking system would be a national ID card which every American would be required to possess. Ostensibly, this national ID would be used to assist immigration reform. It would help employers determine which job applicants are in the country legally and are therefore qualified for legal employment. Eventually, I'm sure all Americans will be required to possess the trackable national ID in order to hold a job or keep the one you've got. Is this beginning to sound familiar? This plan has been promoted before and failed during the Bush administration. In the same way, during the debate over the provisions of Obamacare, Democrats in both houses of Congress attempted to require that patients utilizing that plan have an RFID chip implanted. That would allow the government to track each patient's medical history and provide for better management of healthcare resources. Less well known, though, was the stipulation that the chips would also allow the government access to those patients' banking and financial records. The ominous aspect of this plan is that we all know that the ultimate goal of the current government is universal health care. Now that means that everyone's health care will eventually be provided by the government. Therefore, the bureaucrats will need to be able to track and manage everyone's medical and financial dossiers. So if you're not in the system, that means you don't have the RFID chip implanted in your body. Then you cannot get medical care. Though that part of Obamacare was defeated in the Congress, with liberal legislation, you can always count on one thing. They will bring it around again and again until it finally wears people out and becomes law, either by legislation or, as the current policy is, executive order. Now from Rome. I've discussed Pope Benedict's resignation extensively over the last 3 weeks. I shared with you the intriguing extra-biblical prophecy known as St. Malachy's Prophecy of the Popes. In that document, written in 1139 and first published in 1595 AD, Bishop Malachy predicts the last 112 popes of the Roman Catholic Church, beginning with Celestine II and concluding with, you guessed it, the Pope that is about to be elected by the College of Cardinals next month. I won't go into details of the prophecy again this week, but suffice it to say that Malachy's predictions seem to suggest that the next Pope, number 112 in his lineup, will be from geographical portions of the Roman Empire Phase II, since he will be called Peter the Roman. He will lead the church through many tribulations and eventually see it and Rome destroyed. In previous programs, I've shown you how the Apostle John in the book of Revelation prophesied that the leader of the coming world religious system based in Rome would be instrumental in the rise of the Antichrist and the false prophet. In other words, this future world religious leader will be the key figure to pave the way for the emergence of the Antichrist from the people of the revived Roman Empire. If St. Malachy's prophecy is accurate, and he's been dead on thus far, then the next pope may very well be the world religious leader that John foretold. Now, what makes all of this even more interesting is that I've reported on the papal prophecy 3 times over the last 4 years. In each case, I've noted that Pope Benedict, number 111 in the lineup, was in his mid-80s. Of course, the implication was that at his age, his papacy would only last a few more years, and then number 112 would arrive. Little did I consider the fact that Benedict might abruptly decide to abdicate his papal throne. Popes just don't do that. They die in office. The last time one stepped down was more than 600 years ago. And if that's not enough to get you excited about the times in which we live, consider what we're learning this week. It now appears that we are witnessing a massive power struggle in the hierarchy of the Vatican. The Pope originally announced that he's stepping down because he lacked the physical and mental strength to fully execute the functions of his office. Since then, reports have emerged to indicate that there's a titanic struggle taking place for control of the Roman Catholic Church. The Italian media is also reporting the existence of an extensive and shadowy homosexual lobby that has taken root in the Vatican's administration. We know that there has been scandal in the Catholic banking system that required the replacement of certain high officials and the reassignment of others. In fact, a recent investigation of these scandals conducted by 3 cardinals appointed by Pope Benedict has produced a top-secret report that some observers say contributed to the Pope's decision to retire. The Vatican has accused the Italian media of exposing all of this in recent days in order to influence foreign cardinals who will be coming to Rome for the conclave. The important point for us, though, is that it happened so quickly, and obviously there are forces working behind the scenes to make it occur. Another aspect of the accelerated unfolding of this drama is the growing sense that something is amiss at the Vatican. Of course, many non-Catholics have always thought this to be the case. However, the point is that even those who give the Vatican the benefit of the doubt are beginning to sense that human politics and guile are playing a greater role in these events than ever thought before. That would seem to make it all the more possible to believe that the next pope, if Malachy's predictions are accurate, could be the one that facilitates the predicted revival of the old Roman Empire and enables the platform for the Antichrist and the false prophet to rise to global power. Now, according to Revelation chapter 17, he will also rule at the time of the destruction of the false Roman church system. Symbolically, it's known as the Whore of Babylon from Revelation 17. In this same chapter, the Antichrist and the false prophet will come to hate the religious system that helped them come to power and will utterly destroy it along with the city of the 7 hills from which it reigned over the kings of the earth. We call it Rome. Folks, we may literally be standing at the threshold of those events. That's why I want to revisit a few minutes of a program I presented in 2010 in which I described in specific detail the 2 antichrists that I believe are standing in the wings right now, ready to make their appearance. There are in the Bible prophecies about two personalities that are going to dominate the world in the final 7 years just before the end of history as we know it and the second coming of Christ. These two personalities are the most important men to know about right now, because I believe the conditions for their unveiling are growing very close. Now, in Revelation chapter 13, we have these two personalities introduced. The first one is in Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 10. Now, this first person comes out of the sea. And in the imagery and the symbolism of the book of Revelation, which is also used in the rest of the Bible, a restless, turbulent sea is a picture of the nations of the world in unrest and conflict. Well, out of this conflict of the nations of the world arises this one that Revelation 13 calls the beast. But he is a world ruler who's going to be unveiled that will come out of the remnants of the old Roman Empire and culture. It says that he's going to come out of the final form of the successive world empires the Bible predicted would come, and certainly have come and fallen as they were predicted. Now, this man is going to receive a mortal head wound. And the word means a fatal head wound. And the man is going to be miraculously raised up from that head wound. And it is this miraculous raising to life again that's going to give him immediate world prominence on a scale never before seen. Now, this man is a political man who's religious. And he will come to Rome, and out of Rome, he's going to rule. Now, I call this man the Roman Antichrist. The second personality is introduced in Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 through 18. This second person works hand in hand with the first. This second person says rises out of the land. It's translated earth, but tesges in this context means the land, and it's in contrast with the sea. So as the other one rose out of the sea, this one rises out of the land, and in context this refers to the land of Israel. And there are other prophecies which confirm that this man will be an Israelite. This man will rise and begin to show the same kind of miraculous powers that are given to the first Antichrist. And he is going to use those great satanically inspired powers to bring attention to the first Antichrist. But one of the most important things about his job, and one that fits right in with the things we studied last week, is the fact that he is going to cause all people to worship an image of the Roman Antichrist. And he requires that everyone in the world worship him. And to prove that they are a follower of him, he introduces an economic control that is ingenious. He requires every person on earth to show their allegiance to this Antichrist by receiving a mark that will enable them to buy and sell. Now let me read that particular part of that prophecy to you and show you exactly what this means. In Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 18, it says, and he, this one that is called the false prophet, he causes all the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one should be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. For the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Now, there are certain technological marvels that had to be invented by man before this could be fulfilled. Remember, this was predicted 2,000 years ago. But yet, it says that the Roman Antichrist and his Jewish counterpart that we call a false prophet are going to have the ability to require every person on earth to receive a mark with a number. Now, this number, 666, is the number of the name of the Roman Antichrist, and to prove that they have sworn allegiance to him, they're going to have to receive that number as the prefix to their personal number, which all will have, identity number. And unless you have that prefix number of the Antichrist added to your number, you're not authorized to buy or sell or hold a job. Now just think of the technology that was required for them to be able to do this on a world scale. And we're not talking about being able to require a country or something like that. We're talking on a personal level of every person on the face of this earth being able to buy or sell. And these two personalities will be able to restrict that down to the personal level of each individual because of receiving that number. Now hold that thought, because I'll be back and show you how that's being set up right now.
Hal Lindsey's Look Back at 2012 in the Light of Bible Prophecy is now available on DVD or audio CD. The Prophetic Year in Review 2012 audio CD can be yours for a gift of $10 plus shipping and handling. You can receive the DVD for a gift of $20 plus shipping and handling. To order your DVD or CD of Hal Lindsey's Prophetic Year in Review 2012, call toll-free 1-888-RAPTURE. You can also visit hallindsey.com or write to Hal Lindsey Media Ministries, P.O. Box 470470, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74147. Order your copy today.
As I was saying in the last segment, in order for the Antichrist and the false prophet to be able to control whether every individual on earth could buy or sell, look at the technology that had to take place. First of all, there had to be the invention of electricity. The light bulb was an important advance. Then radio, then television, then going from a vacuum tube, which made building a computer that could do the computing necessary impossible, it'd be too big, to go from a vacuum tube to a transistor. Then there had to be the progression in world communication. There had to be the ability to invent and put into the space satellites, and then to miniaturize all electronic facilities that would implement that. The invention of computers, of course, and the invention of microchips that can now be put under the skin that can carry a small, very small chip can carry your whole personal dossier and be picked up by satellites and transferred to one central place. All of that technology had to take place before the Antichrist and this one known as the false prophet would be able to implement the total control of the world and every individual in its population. Now, we've seen all of this take place. As a matter of fact, it's been an exponential increase in technology in the last 20 years. So that now, being able to technically do this is possible. But politically, there was still a lag. The biggest problem of bringing about a one world government was getting the United States and its citizens to reject the Constitution that has given us the freedoms we have, to subject themselves to a international small group of elite world governors, and to forsake their national sovereignty and their national protections under the Constitution and submit to world governance. Now that, as I showed last week, is rapidly taking place. As a matter of fact, I believe that we're watching the setup of this for the Antichrist to appear. Now, what should we expect for this to happen? First of all, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the Apostle Paul gives a prophecy that gives us an idea of what has to take place immediately before this Antichrist can be introduced. It says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, in the New International Version, "For this secret power of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who now holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way." Now, the one holding back the mystery of world lawlessness is the Holy Spirit of God. He is the restrainer. And because every believer in Jesus Christ is indwelt by the Holy Spirit, to remove him and his restraint from the world involves removing all of those in whom he dwells, and that is every true believer in Jesus Christ. So the first thing that has to suddenly take place is for the true believers in Christ to suddenly and mysteriously be removed. That event has been called the rapture. I believe we're on the verge of that. But the minute that takes place, where divine restraint of lawlessness and evil is removed, immediately the Antichrist will be revealed. And this is what it says in verse 8 about that. "And then the lawless one will be revealed. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan, displayed in all kinds of counterfeit miracles, signs, and wonders, and in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing." Now look, he is going to have all of the powers of Satan. And he is going to be able to work miracles and wonders in the power of Satan. And this is going to get, along with the fact that he's miraculously raised from a fatal wound, is going to be overwhelming for the world. They're going to see him as the Messiah, the one that's going to lead them into peace and security. Now, it goes on and says, "In every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing." They're perishing because they refuse to love the truth and to be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie. The lie is basically gathered around the Antichrist, who is going to present himself as God, and people are going to receive him as that. They're going to say he's the Messiah, he's God, but it'll be the false God. And why do people believe that? Because they've rejected the one source that could show them where the truth and the false is, and that's the Bible. Because they have not loved the truth that Jesus Christ died in their place to bring them a pardon from every sin they'll commit. Because they've rejected that, God is going to send a strong delusion to them to explain away where all of these people who were true believers have disappeared, and to accept all of the great deception that the Antichrist and the false prophet are going to bring to them. The two great personalities are going to dominate the last stages of world history as we know it before Jesus Christ returns and puts them down and sets up a new world over which he will govern. There'll be new management, believe me. But I believe that it's very important to realize There's so much I could cover if I had the time, but it's important to realize this, that these two personalities, the Roman Antichrist is a political figure who's also religious. The false prophet is a religious figure who's also political. They work hand in hand together. They are going to use all of the things that are being set up right now, and probably ignorantly being set up. They're going to use all of the centralization of power, all of the centralization of economics, and the centralization and a common one world currency, common one world electronic money, if you please, to be able to gather things into power so that when this man comes with his electrifying abilities, his tremendous power given him by Satan, the world be ready for him. And the false prophet will cause both the Israelites and the Gentiles to worship this man as God. But it will lead to the disintegration of the world as we know it. It will lead to a time when there will be a rebellion among the nations and Armageddon will start. A war so great that only the personal return of Jesus Christ will be able to stop it. I believe we're right at that time. All of the birth pangs Jesus said to watch as signs indicating his return would increase in frequency and intensity. Religious deception, famine, earthquakes, global weather pattern changes, the tremendous rise of conflict between nations. All of them are before us now. So I believe the most important thing for you to do is to settle where you stand with God right now. Jesus has died for every sin you ever commit. You just have to acknowledge that you're a sinner and receive the gift of pardon that he offers you. Do that right now. Time is running out. Thank you so much for standing with me as a watchman on the wall. I thank God for sending me such loyal partners, and I pray daily that he will reward your faithfulness and protect and prosper you in these very difficult times. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Well, we'll keep our eyes on all of the things that are happening in this area. And God willing, I'll see you next week.
You've been watching the Hal Lindsey Report. To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Hal Lindsey Media Ministries, P.O. Box 470470, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74147. You can also support this ministry online. Visit hallindsey.com or call 1-888-RAPTURE.